Pokemon Champions is one of the biggest risks we've ever seen the Pokemon Company make. And that's exactly why they can't afford to have it launch dry. With no release date in sight, Pokemon Champions is set to be the official software for the 2026 Video Game Championships, a season that is already halfway over. Champions also follows in the wake of Pokemon Unite, the company's first attempt to make a real esport that has been an absolute disaster by Pokemon standards. And with all the bare bones mobile releases we've been seeing from this franchise, it begs the very real question. Will Champions just be more of the same? But it doesn't have to be. Champions can be a success with just one other included feature. This is about the one thing this game cannot afford to lose and still be successful like TCG Pocket is doing. That one thing is casual players. Unlike Pocket, which focuses on whales gacha style, Champions will depend on casual players in more ways than one. So, let's unpack the space this game is launching into, how it can avoid being the next Pokemon meat grinder, and why casual players are crucial. And quickly, those who like to stay leak-free, this video is safe. This breakdown will not be referencing them in any way.
Okay, let's go.
Pokemon Champions bringing battling to everyone isn't just a new mobile game. It's a hostile takeover of the Pokemon World Championships. The Pokemon Company staking the future of VGC that took years to cultivate on an unreleased app is kinda crazy. Forget Unite. VGC is the closest thing the Pokemon Company's ever had to going full respectable esport, and now it's being structured like one. But here's the thing, most top esports thrive on being mechanical. You can see the skill gap instantly. Champions is main series turn-based combat, which is deep in its own way, but it's too early to tell how big it can grow by bringing battling to everyone. The PC era of esports is over. Mobile gaming, which is more Pokemon speed, is right up at the top. And that, at the least, opens the door for something Pokemon to make it up there. If you think about it, this is the Pokemon Company. They really only make big money moves. Like how Pocket brought cards to the large mainstream audience digitally, Champions could be intended to do something similar. The extreme popularity of guys like Wolfie VGC have shown the Pokemon Company there is a market for this. Especially when they removed the barrier of entry completely, whether that's something Pokemon fans have been asking for or not. I say that because Pokemon Showdown, the staple online battle simulator, has always been pretty niche. But you know who has been asking for this? VGC Titans, like Wolfie, have actually been asking for the separation of the VGC format from the main series for a while. And for good reason. It will allow for a new level of balancing we haven't seen before, free from the whims of the main series. Just imagine, we could see something like Mega Evolution and Dynamaxing in the same battle at the same time, and it not be super unbalanced. Sounds insane. But there's a catch. People are mid-season in Scarlet and Violet right now, knowing that they would have to pivot their meta for Champions and Mega Evolution sometime before August. Now, we're expecting news on Pokemon Day, but still, the clock is ticking and people are eager for a release date. The Pokemon Company could be rushing this game out the door for a deadline, which is something the gaming community as a whole is all too familiar with. One of the biggest complaints of modern games, especially Pokemon, is just how bare bones and dry they are. In my last video, we talked about Pocket despite being one of the most successful games just ever. It doesn't matter who you are, that game leaves you feeling unsatisfied in one way or another. Some of the things that have been said about Pokemon Unite make you wonder how it's lasted even just this long. Both games' biggest criticism besides monetization are their lack of meaningful casual content to engage with. But if Champions ends up being a competitive battle simulator, why should anyone care if there's no campaign mode or casuals don't play it? Let the sweats have their game. But here's the thing. In the world of games, especially competitive ones, casuals are the ecosystem. Let me show you. Think of it like a pyramid. At the top, you have the top % of players, the VGC pros, etc. At the bottom, the casual players, who are the vast majority, and everyone in between. Whether the goal is a big league esport or just a profitable app, who is the demographic the Pokemon Company needs to watch event streams and really to spend money? The casuals. The people towards the bottom are what props up the whole pyramid. They are the foundation. In media, there's a concept called the 99-1 rule. Don't worry, I hadn't heard of it either until I started digging into this. While the numbers are nowhere near exact, it's basically the 90% are casual players. They aren't vocal about the game. The 9% are the active vocal people online. They take the game seriously, but they aren't the very best, like no one ever was. The 1%, the pros, the big creators, the commentators, they influence the 99%. This could explain how Pokemon Unite has entered a death spiral. Between the pay to win now or grind for months, licenses, and items, the broken matchmaking that mixes every rank with bots, and the Rayquaza coin flip that makes the first 8 minutes of a match irrelevant. The developer alienated their player base, trying to squeeze money out of them, and the players just dropped off. It should be clear now that either way, it doesn't make sense to make a game for just the sweats, whoever that is. And the Pokemon Company knows that. So, if Champions launches strictly as a competitive battles platform, it will lower the game's earning potential by alienating people who will download the game simply because it says Pokemon on it. Unite teaches us that a purely competitive game isn't enough to sustain an audience the size of, and especially with the temperament of, Pokemon fans. That thing that sustains them is adventuring with your favorite Pokemon. That is that Pokemon it factor that keeps people coming back every year to buy Game Freak's slop. It's like we forget how it was before mobile gaming. The most similar games we've gotten to Pokemon Champions, like Stadium, Coliseum, Battle Revolution, releasing without their campaigns would have been unthinkable. Of course, they aren't strictly eSports style competitive games, but they are proof that Pokemon battling games used to have some substance. Battling NPCs with some sort of motivation behind it is still rewarding, but a lot more relaxing than PvP. It feels more like entertainment than a competition. So, what is a player to do when they sit down on the toilet and the smell won't allow them to optimally play a PvP match? Are they just going to play a private match versus AI? No. They're going to play or watch something else, unless there is something for them to engage with. And if Champions functions anything like Pocket, even the ultra-competitive players are going to want something to grind while they wait for the inexplicably long gap between ranked seasons. This theoretical Champions campaign doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to provide some sense of accomplishment or be emotionally investable. A visual novel-style format that transitions to and from battles could be just fine. Not to mention, this is a great opportunity for them to experiment around with some voice acting for once. Something people have been begging for. Look at Pokemon Masters, a story-driven gacha. It has a fraction of Unite's downloads, but it consistently out-earns it. Gacha or not, its players are retained, not alienated. And if Champions pulls a TCG Pocket and delays this key feature until after launch, that is a huge mistake for retention, because as we know, that first month is always the biggest, and one thing is for sure, this game will not be making pocket money. The monetization of this game really is the final piece of the puzzle. We all know how important consistent monthly revenue is to mobile games. And I know many people feel like every move the Pokemon Company makes is just to drive merch sales, considering this reality. While it's too early to tell exactly how this game will be monetized, we do know that unlike Unite, they won't be selling you Pokemon. Whether bringing Mons from Pokemon Home lets you circumvent the grind for them, giving a massive FU to new players in the process, is besides the point. What they have said is that the game will be free to start, which indicates that there may be some sort of pay-to-avoid catch. While a potential campaign may not be locked behind the paid version, it could play a big part in getting those crucial casual players converted to the paid version. Pair that with them all but confirming cosmetics will be sold through microtransactions, this really only hints to one thing. That, in general, there is a cap to how much one individual can and will spend on this game. Meaning, Champions can't replicate Pocket's gacha monetization strategy where the minority of whales make up the majority of the revenue. It instead will be more like Unites. Although probably not pay to win, Champions still can't afford to be Unite Round 2 and lose a large volume of players due to retention issues if it ever hopes to grow beyond what VGC already is. And you already know what would help with that. A campaign or story mode. Thanks for watching.